My name is Anna, and this is my story. It all started with a really bad decision. I stole money, nitro, and fell into your state town. I felt like I had no choice. I didn't want to, but things had gotten so desperate. Let me tell you everything. I have a younger brother, Mark. He's my whole world. One day, he got into some serious trouble. He owed a lot of money to some pretty shady people, the kind you don't want to mess with. They told him if he didn't pay up, he was going to be in a lot of pain. He came to me, scared to death, begging for help. I didn't know what to do. I barely had enough to pay my own bills, and I couldn't ask our parents for help. They were struggling too. Then I thought of David. David's a really wealthy guy. How? He has everything, tons of money, a fancy car, a huge house up on the hill. He's been after me for a long time, but I just don't feel the same way about him. He's always saying things like, I can give you anything, Anna, just say the word. I don't love him. I don't even really like him. But my brother's life was on the line. I couldn't let anything happen to Mark. So, I went to David's house. David, I need your help, I said, trying to keep my voice steady. My brother is in trouble. Can you lend me some money? David smiled, like he'd been waiting for this moment. I'll give you all the money you need, Anna, but there's one condition. What is it? I asked, a knot forming in my stomach. You have to be my girlfriend, he said. I was stunned. How could he even say that right now? I told him, no way. I told him I didn't like him that way. But David just shrugged. If you want the money, that's the deal. I was desperate. Mark needed me. I swallowed my pride and agreed. David handed me a stack of cash. I took it, but I knew deep down I couldn't go through with being his girlfriend. That night, I went back to his house. I wanted to give him the money back and call the whole thing off, but David wasn't listening. He started getting close to me, smiling in a way that made me really uncomfortable. I panicked. On the coffee table, there was a heavy glass paperweight. Without thinking, I grabbed it and swung. It hit David, and he went down. I didn't stick around. I didn't stick around. I grabbed the money and ran. I ran until my lungs burned. Finally, I spotted a small house on a quiet street. The lights were off. I took a chance and knocked on the door. A young man answered. His name was Ethan. He looked surprised to see me. Please, I said, help me. I have nowhere to go. Penny, too. Ethan looked at me for a long moment, his eyes filled with concern. He nodded. Come in, he said. I stayed at Ethan's house for a few days. The police were looking for me. David had called them, of course. They searched the neighborhood, but they didn't find me. Ethan helped me stay hidden. He was so kind. I told him everything, about Mark, about David, about why I stole the money. Ethan listened without judging me. He didn't yell or get angry. He just said, "You did what you thought was right for your family." Ethan was nothing like David. He was calm, genuine, and understanding. He made me feel safe. After a few days, I knew I had to leave. I couldn't stay there forever. I thanked Ethan for everything and said goodbye. But as I walked away, I couldn't stop thinking about him. His smile, his voice, the way he listened, it was all I could think about. What is happening? I asked myself. Why can't I stop thinking about Ethan? Days turned into weeks. I paid off my brother's debts. He was safe. The dangerous people left him alone. That made me happy, but my heart was restless. Ethan was all I could think about. Finally, I made up my mind. I was going back. I didn't know if Ethan would even want to see me, but I had to find out. When I reached Ethan's house, my heart was pounding. I stood at the door, took a deep breath, and knocked. The door opened, and there he was. Ethan. Oh, mine. How wine true. Ethan. He looked surprised. Anna, he said. You're back. Yes, I said, my voice trembling. I came to thank you again. I wonder to sell our family a sour talkati, shura. And to tell you something. I'll rouse Kelly at 2. Ethan stepped aside and let me in. We sat down in his small living room. I looked at him, trying to find the right words. Ethan, I began, you were so kind to me. You helped me when I was at my lowest. I haven't been able to stop thinking about you. I think I'm falling for you. Ethan looked at me, his eyes filled with something I couldn't quite read. For a moment, he didn't say anything. I felt like I was going to pass out. Finally, he smiled. Anna, he said softly, I've been thinking about you too. I missed you every day since you left. I hoped you'd come back. I could barely believe it. You mean, you feel the same way? Yes, I do. He reached out and took my hand. Over the next few weeks, Ethan and I spent all our time together. He showed me his favorite hiking trails, his collection of old vinyl records, and told me about his dream of becoming a wildlife photographer. He made me laugh, and he made me feel like I could finally breathe again. But our happiness was short-lived. David wasn't going to let me go that easily. One evening, as Ethan and I were sitting on his porch, a black SUV pulled up. My stomach dropped. It was David. He got out of the car, his face like thunder, and 2 guys who looked like bodybuilders got out with him. David stalked toward us. Anna, he said, his voice dripping with anger. You thought you could steal from me and just disappear? Ethan stood up and stepped in front of me. I will fly. Leave her alone, David. David sneered. And who are you? Ah, and hey, Tin Cheryl, always stay you. Her new boyfriend? Oh, I, too, is so, I'm sure there, and no boyfriend. Step aside before you get hurt. I'm not going to let you hurt her, Ethan said, his voice calm but firm. The tension was thick enough to cut with a knife. David's goons started moving closer, cracking their knuckles. Ethan pulled out his phone. I'm calling the police, David. Do you really want more trouble? I ain't many. David hesitated. He didn't want to deal with the cops. Finally, he spat on the ground and said, "This isn't over, Anna. You'll pay for this." Then he turned and stormed back to his SUV. After that night, Ethan and I knew we had to get out of town. It wasn't safe. We packed what little we had and moved to a small, quiet town a few hours away. Life there was simple. Ethan found a job at the local elementary school, and I started working at a little bakery downtown. We didn't have much, but we had each other. One evening, as we were sitting by the fire, Ethan took my hand and looked into my eyes. "Anna," he said, "I want to spend the rest of my life with you. Will you marry me?" "Oh," said her, "will you marry me?" Tears welled up in my eyes. "Yes," I whispered. "Yes, I will." Our wedding was small and simple, but it was perfect. We didn't need a fancy venue or a lot of guests. All we needed was each other. Looking back, I realize how much I've changed. I made some terrible mistakes, but those mistakes led me to Ethan. He showed me what it means to truly love and be loved. Now every morning, when I wake up and see him lying next to me, I feel like the luckiest girl in the world. My life isn't perfect, but it's filled with love, and that's all I could ever ask for. And so, that's my story.